how I kept going, but I kept reading those books and I kept turning up. And even after every pit of despair, like I drank my way out of, you name the thing, making the Olympics in triathlon. I drank my way out of going to the Paralympics with my cycling partner. She was...
Bang! Welcome back to the #1 podcast in the world. I am joined today by 3-time world CrossFit champion Amanda Allen, who also has her own podcast, Whisperings with Women, and her own product range of supplements. Thank you for joining me today, Amanda.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Are you a serial overachiever?
Yeah. You got me.
It seems like
Jesus, yeah.
It seems like you just have your finger in every single pie right now. Like how do you sustain this kind of lifestyle? This is crazy.
Yeah, it's how they built me. Hey, I've just had to learn to live with it, you know. It's like, and really, you know, I mean, my history is an interesting one. I've been very open about all of my challenges, pretty much everything. And, you know, alcoholism's a good part of that. So
right.
Many moons as an alcoholic, and then got sober in the rooms of AA and rehab. And, you know, I didn't down tools then. I came back kicking and ended up, you know, taking on CrossFit and becoming a triple world champion, because if I don't direct this energy that I've been born with to something good, it goes to something evil. And,
that's an interesting point you make, that you know, you seem to have like this really high energy about you. You know, we're talking a little bit off air and you're just very vibrant and positive. You're essentially like the poster girl for health. You know, you've hit these amazing achievements for your age, and continue to thrive and continue to keep going. So I wouldn't imagine that someone like you would have had to deal with, you know, your own demons in alcoholism and substances beforehand. Man. Like, what happened there? I
had to make the demons dance. Hey, like I almost died at my own hands so many times. And, you know, suicidal depression has been my bedfellow on and off throughout my entire life. And honestly, I think the you know, pin-up girl for health has come of, well, firstly, not taking my own life, and then secondly, deciding if, and I know you can swear on this podcast.
Yes, so, you can.
If I didn't take my own life, I was going to have a fucking good one. You know, I was going to turn it all around, because I wasn't going to go on suffering anymore. It's not what I'm here for. I've done it. Pit of despair was, you know, my second home. So I've turned it around, and I tell you, it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been pretty. And, you know, like I've left a trail of challenges and obstacles and things that I've overcome. But here we are today. I'm 51, and, you know, I get to turn it all around and help others. You know, from what I've suffered with, what I've learned, you know, you name it. You know, I was cut open twice. Yeah, like that's a good one. 4 kilos of tumors removed. You know, I've run 1,000 kilometers for suicide and mental illness, you know, suicidal depression, left domestic violence not too long ago, only to be homeless in my van, and then COVID hit. So 5 months in my van with my two wolves.
You went through COVID in your van?
Oh, it was pretty bad too in those early, you know, and then when it really hit and everyone thought they're going to be dead bodies piling up in the street.
It was the apocalypse. It was the end of the world.
It was the apocalypse. That was my favorite. And yeah, people were really violent actually. And I felt constantly under threat, but having left a situation of domestic violence, I was already in a state of hypervigilance and trauma. So like this layer upon layer of homelessness and then COVID and being targeted by all sorts of people, it was quite a threatening time.
But when you say targeted, what do you mean by that?
People were vandalizing. So I had Queensland plates, and I was in New South Wales. I crossed the border, and people were targeting and vandalizing and like dobbing into the police. I had the police come around many times, and what are you doing here at this lookout? I'm like, I'm looking out. You know, it's like, it's like, where do you live? It's like, and I'm like, fuck, do I lie or do I tell the truth? I don't know what the go is here. What's the protocol?
Yeah, what did you say to that?
Well, I said something and then they picked it. I was like, oh, I'm just, I live, and then they kind of asked me questions and it was apparent that I was lying. And then I'm like, I live in their driveway in my van. I was like, I'll tell a half truth, you know? Honestly, I didn't know. And in the end, towards the end of that 5 months, I was showering at the homeless hub. They were my family. I was like mates with all the homeless people. I was a mess. What you see here is not what the other side of depression, suicidal depression, trauma, immense fear, hypervigilance looks like. It was like a woman living in a war zone.
Jesus Christ.
But I've had a year of incredible stability and more and more stability, and I'm flourishing.
That's excellent news. I love to hear that. And I think people like you that are so confident and so vocal about your story and, not just the highlights, because with someone of your resume, we'll go into it a little bit, but you've obviously had a very successful career in CrossFit and a very successful career as a triathlete and, every sport under the sun essentially. It would be very easy for you to kind of just put forward all the good stuff that you've done, and all the trophies and accolades and articles that have been written about you. But I find you very interesting in the sense that you're very prepared to go to the other side, all the struggles and tribulations. I think that's really valuable for people to understand that there's dichotomy in human beings. It's not just the Instagram, the highlight posts where everything's perfect.
Yeah, the bikini body.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, not so much. No.
Where did you find that desire to go and share your story?
Honestly, I honestly don't know. I know that, and perhaps actually I think really the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, because I was in rehab. I was doing 2 meetings a day. I couldn't work. Centrelink were really good. I ended up on a personal support program. I had this beautiful woman. She was like a grandmother from, I think it was Anglicare, who was my counselor or whatever. And I was loved back to life. And what happens in those rooms is you get up there, you open your mouth to a room full of people you've never known before, and you're in free fall, and you share. And what happens is you discover that, the person in the room that is nothing like you from the surface, like this crusty old man who was probably, a gutter alcoholic with a paper bag and an overcoat telling my story.
Yeah.
And he told me things, and over and over and over and over and over again, you discover you're not alone. The things that you think you're the only one in the world dealing with it, struggling with it, suffering from it, not even close. And I think that's the most powerful gift one of many powerful gifts of the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And, I suffered enough. I reached a rock bottom that I was willing to do whatever it took. And it took sitting in rooms and sharing my story over and over again. Yeah. And being very uncomfortable in that, because an alcoholic wants to drink.
Yeah, of course. And, I think that kind of process of being able to be so vulnerable with essentially a room of strangers, right? I'd imagine over time you build a community in there, but your first time going into Alcoholics Anonymous, you wouldn't know anyone there. You wouldn't know what the social norms are there and what you do talk about and what you don't talk about. That must have been very confronting for you.
Horrendously so. I mean, I barely was able to walk into the rooms the first time. Literally, my legs wouldn't work. But what happened even in the first meeting, my first meeting was in Margaret River, because I was working for 2 wineries. I had a winemaking partner. I was stealing wine from both of my employers. I had a room in my house full of boxes of wine, and I was in a mortal collapse because I knew there wasn't enough wine, because I was a posh alcoholic on the planet. I thought if I could just fill that room with alcohol, be enough to get me through my life, but it wasn't. And but what happened was I never felt more known. I never felt more understood. I never felt more at home than I did in the first meeting, and then always in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I think when the commonality is immense suffering, something magical and mysterious happens.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that power of community and that power of being able to trust the people around you, and kind of what you alluded to before in being loved back to life. Why don't we rewind?
The hard thing is like the thing about it is, you've got to keep turning up. And I tell you, there are so many times, even 5 years in, I was having meltdowns in meeting. I'm never going to be able to drink again, and literally sobbing my way through meetings and suicidal. So like, it's no picnic getting sober. It's no picnic getting well. I mean, it's no picnic just going to the gym to work out, right? For many, many people. So there are levels. Yeah. But I'm obviously built of something that kept me turning up.
You must have an iron rod through you, because you seem to be very strong and you seem to go through these challenges of life. I'm curious to know though, how did you find yourself at that point where you felt like you had to go to something like an Alcoholics Anonymous? Were you always kind of
yeah, no,
interested in the alcohol
in trouble.
space?
I was always in trouble.
Yeah,
I was. Well, I grew up in an alcoholic. Well, there was alcoholism ran through my family. I grew up in hotels and restaurants.
Oh, really? Why was that?
So from 14, I was.
Why was that?
Oh, yeah, my dad owned hotels and restaurants, so I lived upstairs. My bedroom when I was growing up was right before I became an alcoholic, like decided to start my illustrious career. I was my little bedroom was above the nightclub, like literally above the speakers in the roof. Above my bedroom window was above the men's toilets window, above the urinal.
Jesus.
You know, it was like I was living the dream, and because it's in my genetics, right? This is all I can put it down to. And I was always highly sensitive, extremely, just extremely sensitive, and uncomfortable, so uncomfortable with people. So drinking was just waiting for me. And once I started, I never stopped. I left school. I went out at night. My parents never knew where I was. Bad things happened, but I kept drinking.
So
drank my way out of school and never stopped. And not till I was, I'm 17 years sober now.
Congratulations.
So I'm 51. Yeah, 34 I think I stopped. So I got a good 20 years in.
So
it was bad. Like, it was no joke. It was towards the end it was easily 3 bottles of wine a day,
wow.
Easily.
So you were 14 years old, living essentially above a nightclub. Are you kind of like exploring around and socializing with people and having like, what was the situation for you growing up in an environment like that? Because that's not conducive for most 14-year-olds to grow up in.
Not so good, huh? Yeah. I don't even know, honestly, because you don't know what you don't know when you're growing up. It's just normal. You don't know it's not supposed to be this way. Yeah. Parents not present. I would crawl out onto the roof because, we crossed over the hotel roof to get to our little apartment above the pub. And I would just crawl out onto the roof and watch the bouncers at night and the people lining up. And, I could see the men in the urinal from, if I was on the roof, like it was all wrong.
Yeah. And so, and to a 14-year-old, that would have been like, it would have just looked like so much fun. Like, look at all these grown-ups having the time of their lives. Like, that curiosity would have started a lot earlier for you than what it would have been for a lot more people.
Yeah, that's an interesting question, isn't it? Look, I was always, I felt like I was always watching. I was always seeing people and feeling people and observing people and being somehow like slightly removed from people, always watching, but always so desperately uncomfortable in my own skin, like so desperately. I used to talk about the pit of despair, that was where I lived, and no good things happened there. And, that I managed to get through. I don't know how. I don't know why. Actually, really, it was I read a lot of books when I was young, and I also
what would you read?
I trained. Oh, fuck. Do you remember? Oh, you probably went like The Day of the Triffids. I read all of D.H. Lawrence. I don't know what a 14-year-old, but also what I did was this is pretty much when it started, this desperate search for relief, right? Answers, relief, a way out of my own skin and the pit of despair. And I was reading university psychiatry texts as a 14-year-old girl.
Really?
Now, I don't even know where I found them. I was desperate, and I never stopped. And even as a fully blown, fully active alcoholic, I'd be reading, I'd be on the beach with a cask, reading self-help books, underlining them, thinking that something, You know, it would all come together. Like I would find that one line.
Yeah.
I would read that book. And that would change everything, and everything would be all right then. I think that got me through, and I don't know if that's delusional. Maybe it's my delusions that got me through, my fantasies.
I think it's delusional optimism. You know, you were searching for answers. You were searching for something to kind of, you know, pull you through those situations, because, you know, I think a lot of people can relate to that in the sense that everyone seems to be kind of following these motivational quotes pages on Instagram or reading self-help books. Like I grew up on the Tony Robbins era. You know, so when
I did a lot of Tony Robbins.
Yeah, love Tony Robbins. So when I was 14, 15, I would read a lot of Tony Robbins, like neuro-linguistic programming and, you know, the power of now, awaken the power within. Excellent text.
Yeah. Unleash the power within, right?
Yes, that's the one. Or the giant within.
I've done a lot of, the giant or whoever.
Yeah.
I did a lot of reading of his stuff, and I did a lot of his courses too, and went to Vanuatu, I think, did one of his things, life mastery or whatever. Yeah, I walked on the hot coals, didn't get burned. Went back to the hotel room that night, put a plastic kettle on, grabbed it, and got burnt through the handle where the steam was coming out, and that was after my walk on the hot coals. It was really quite an interesting experience mentally. I don't know. I still don't fully understand how I didn't get burned. It's a remarkable thing, mind over matter, and very powerful.
There's some weird like connection between the brain and the body that I don't think we fully understand yet. And, you know, it leads to these like amazing human feats that we can accomplish, you know, and you see it in the pinnacle of athletes or people that really push themselves to the extreme, you know, like you get your Wim Hofs that can just breathe, like stay underwater in Arctic conditions for, you know, 10 to 15 minutes at a time. And it's just like, there's something there that we're not tapping into yet.
Absolutely. And unless, and we're also addicted to being comfortable and convenience and comfort, and that's never been my life, and it's never been my experience. And I guess that's why, and I've always been looking to save myself and prove myself, and so I've always been the one that's been willing to step further into the fire and stay there than anybody else. And I wanted to know, would I flinch? Could I trust myself? So I would always push, and I'm sure you would relate to that with your interest in MMA.
Yeah, of course.
Like you've got to be made of something pretty remarkable.
Well, I you know, I like to surround myself with people that push themselves to that extreme, because it's like, you know, I can catch the lessons that they've got going on, and, you know, catch those glimpses of wisdom that they, you know, hold without having to do the legwork behind it. So, you know,
but you do, you it's like osmosis, you know, like you are the sum total of the people, places and things that you surround yourself with. And I just believed, and especially in CrossFit, you know, with my CrossFit career, I just figured if other fucking women can do it, I can fucking do it.
Yeah.
Right. I don't care if I can't do it now, or if people tell me it's impossible. They can do it, I'm going to do it. And I would just like, it was almost like shamanic journeying. I'm like, all right, I'm going to pretend I'm them, and I'm going to do this, you know, 70, 80 kilo snatch. You know, I'm going to, whatever the thing is, I'm like, I'm just going to channel it.
Yeah.
There's a lot of value in it.
And so you obviously were very eager to sharpen your mind, and you had a lot of questions, and, you know, you were from an early age, you were very much on a journey of self-discovery. Where did you find you know, fitness in general kind of tied into that? Like, how did you jump into that world?
Well, to be honest, I think because I was I've actually written a little book which I need to update. I think there's a lot more to add to it, The Time of My Life, which is available on my website. But one of the things that I talk about in there is the evidence that I gathered against myself when I was younger. I was constantly gathering the evidence against myself.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I would be like, my mum would tell me I could do anything, but I would show you that all of the things that I can't do. And then my dad wouldn't give me the time of day. So I'm trying to prove myself to him. So I was always like, you know, like trying to manage those two things. But, I would always be like, no, boys didn't like me. You know, girls were nasty to me. I didn't have a thigh gap. You know, I couldn't lose. I don't even know what the thing was. I was covered in acne, you know, all over my chest and face. And you know, there was always these things that I would keep a track of as evidence against anything good about myself. So that was kind of my school experience. And really sport was the only place that I felt safe, that I felt relief, that I could lose myself. So, and I was very good at sport. And what ended up happening was individual sports, because I tried water polo and women were just really mean. Like, women are next level, and especially water polo. So I was easily intimidated, extremely sensitive. So I'm not sure what question of yours I'm now answering, but
that's okay.
But yeah, sport was the thing that saved me. And the only thing I ever knew as a child is I wanted to write and I wanted to do sport. That was it.
Right.
I wanted to be an athlete. I wanted to write. That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so did you find that because you had this world of escapism in sport, you mentioned, well, I mean, from what I know about you, you started like running and doing triathletes and swimming, and all those endeavors. Did you find that through those avenues of essentially escapism that you were able to kind of redirect your life and find stability again? Or like, what was the net positive for you that came out of competing in sport?
Yeah, like relief, truly. Relief. It's the only thing that made sense. It was the only way I could be in the public with other people and vibe high and feel good, you know, not feel threatened, not feel socially awkward, not have to say things that, I was like, you know, and then all of that stuff be going on in my mind. And I just knew I was the odd one out. And I guess I spent a lifetime trying to hide my immense nauseating discomfort inside of my own skin, and sport, time and again, it gave me that. And I guess it gave me some recognition as well. Like, I think I've still got like the 200-meter record in my the college that I went to back in Adelaide. You know, like I was quite, it was I was obsessive, I suppose, you know, or addictive, or driven. And thankfully sport was the one thing that held me and saved me. But I drank my way out of school. I left school at 14.
You left at 14?
And I left school at 14, and I moved out and I lived with these guys, and you know, I was stealing toilet paper from the local, you know, toilet block, and like, it wasn't good.
So how did you get to that crossroad at 14 years old? How did you say, I'm tired of living with my parents, like I'm out?
Drinking. And because I was, you know, my dad had the hotel and my mum lived a few kilometers around the corner, and both of them were extremely obsessive themselves. My dad was hell-bent on making his millions, and you know, my mum was driven and I think very traumatized, and a lot of mental health issues, bipolar, manic, depressive, you know, on that spectrum. So, you know, they weren't necessarily present. They were extremely high achievers. And, you know, I would carry on my back. Like, we'd be 2 days with my mum, a few days with my dad. You know, we'd walk ourselves around or ride our bikes. You know, nobody really ever knew where we were, and was sort of, you know, I was the responsible one for my siblings. And, you know, I think I just started drinking and drank myself out. I can't tell you when, I can't tell you why I left. One day I was gone. I had a boyfriend and I was gone. I went and lived with him and, you know, these 3 other older men and guys. And, you know, they drank and smoked and partied. And I just went there and I drank a lot.
Yeah, wow, that is...
a lot. And I thought... and I would eat that KFC mash and gravy. That would be my diet, because I thought that was healthy. So I was like eating mashed potato and gravy from KFC, stealing toilet paper and drinking myself into oblivion. Yeah.
Damn, that is quite the experience for a 14-year-old. But you mentioned later on that you kind of found yourself in college teams again. So how did you make your kind of way back into the education system?
I don't know, honestly, when I must have decided to go back to do pre-matric, and then I did matric. I went and I did on an AFS American Field Scholarship. I went to Panama for a year. And I think a lot of that was just trying to save myself from my drinking and my alcoholism. I did drink when I was with my host family in Panama. I brought a lot of shame on them and on myself. I was already full of such shame and guilt and self-disgust and remorse. And but I did get myself back into I went to university. I was either drinking or high-level sport or drinking during university, one or the other, to extreme.
But I just find that remarkable because you strike me as such like a disciplined and centered and focused human being, like to exceed in any sport. And, you kind of gloss over, those earlier years. But I know for a fact that you were very competitive and that you were very good at what you were doing. And I just find I find it, I don't know the exact word I'm looking for here, but it's like you were so focused and so disciplined in that sense. And for most people, the way they build structure around their life is they start with their body. And so for most people, they're able to, they'll go for a jog in the morning, or they'll lift some weights in the morning, or they'll do a CrossFit class in the morning, and that will set them up for the rest of their day to have structure. But it seems like you put all of your energy onto this one kind of avenue, and then there was just chaos everywhere else.
Like living inside of my own skin was like, it was just nauseating. I just existed in a pit of despair in this dark bubble of depression that was so heavy, and it was like it was corrosive, everything, and nobody could help me, and I couldn't explain it. And later on, because my father was also, both parents, pharmacists, and I could never speak about it. And even now, it's not really a thing in my family that anybody has, reached out to me about, and that's just how it is. But I don't know why I'm still here. I don't know how I kept going, but I kept reading those books, and I kept turning up. And even after every pit of despair, like I drank my way out of, you name the thing, making the Olympics in triathlon. I drank my way out of going to the Paralympics with my cycling partner. She was blind on the back. I was the pilot on the front. We competed in track cycling and we state national titles. But I drank the night before nationals with her, I drank 2 bottles of wine. Then we went and we set records and qualified for the Paralympics. But again, the drinking just reared its ugly head. I was just like this push me, pull you. I'll be like saving myself, destroying myself with equal force and capacity. And in the end, I didn't die. Many, many times I didn't die. I wanted to die. And so when I would get it back together again, I would be, and it's a funny thing because my menstrual cycle played a huge part in it. So for me, I was 2 weeks in the pit of despair, PMT, and it was horrendous. And then I would come out of that and I could take on the world.
Yeah.
I could do anything. I'll do a TED talk. I will go become a professional. I could do anything. And then it would hit again. So I was always like this throughout my life. And here I am.
So it was almost like externally on the things that you could control and on the things that you had direct focus over. So like that weight, you could lift it up if you trained hard enough for it, or that 200 meters you could run towards if you were disciplined enough in that sense. So everything on the external thing was very exciting for you, but confronting that internal battle was what really kind of led you towards that other path.
Yeah, that's right. It was on again, off again, pit of despair, drag myself out, fix myself up, pit of despair. But something in me kept turning up, reading the books, trying again. And I desperately wanted my dad's approval. I wanted him to love me and see me and celebrate me and maybe even save me or something.
Of course.
I just couldn't get it. But, I was a trier. Such a trier. I think that's what's got me through. It's like, look at her go. Look at her having a go.
Yeah.
But I think, this addictive, like once I got sober, you know, it's because I was always like, don't talk to me about discipline. I'm not going to have a mortgage and 3 kids and a husband. I'm not doing what you people do. You know, I was really against it, and maybe I was rejecting everything that my parents wanted me to be. But it led me down this other path. So I never wanted to have kids. I never have. I've never been married. I never really wanted that either, but it never presented itself. And so I threw myself into what I could to save myself, and more and more and more that became physical activity. So triathlon. You know, and it was 3 sports. I'm like, well, that's cool. Like there's 3 things in one sport, because I needed stimulation, immense place to direct my energy and a lot of stimulation. So triathlon was perfect. And actually at the time my dad was doing triathlon. So I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to beat him. So I did. So he stopped doing triathlon.
I love that.
Oh, it's just too many contradictions, you know, inside of my own little skin. But, you know, the beauty is now, and I'm not, like, I feel like I've harmonized a lot of the stuff, a lot. I've made peace with a lot of things. I've slain my own dragon over and over and over again. And something is only very, very new and emerging. And it had to, like, literally the bones of my soul to be crushed for this new version of me to emerge. Yeah. So I'm really glad that I persevered.
Of course. So are we, you know, it's
so are my puppies. We don't want anyone else. We want you.
You mentioned a bit earlier that you were, you know, kind of in the contendership to make the Olympics. Did you say for triathletes? What was
triathlon.
What was that experience like? Because I imagine that would have been like a very high goal for you to achieve that. Like, how did you end up in triathletes to begin with?
Well, I started triathlon simply because I was trying to save myself from drinking, and I knew I either drink or I do something with this energy. And because I was doing aerobics and running to the gym and all of this sort of stuff, that's when I was really, really good. And then I would drink myself out of it. And then I went through another period. I was in university. I was drinking again, and, you know, turning up to exams still hungover, and then I just got this thing in my head, and I started doing triathlon, and I started coming out and coming up and getting better, and then getting recognition. I went to the university games and I won, and, you know, and I just got traction in this thing. And so, I kept doing it. It's like, well, I'm going to kill myself drinking with suicidal depression, or I'm going to do this thing. And what happens when I do that other thing is I'm extremely talented, extremely determined, and I can swallow pain like no other motherfucker on the planet. So I always got a lot of results that kept me motivated.
Did you have sorry to interrupt. Did you have a specific strategy in managing that pain? Because there's, you know, it's some of these competitions extend well beyond 2, 3, 4 hours, you know, when you're, you know, you're not only cycling, but you're swimming and you're running, and it's, you know, it's whatever the conditions, whether it's rain, hail or shine, you're out there. You know, for most people, just to go for a 30-minute jog is immensely painful. And to find someone that's competing in triathletes so frequently, like, how did you manage that pain throughout the competition?
Well, my pain was like my friend. It was my, it was part of, like, I was so familiar with pain, do you know, but the inner pain of suicidal depression and self-disgust and self-loathing, that's one kind of pain. But this other kind of pain that came from high levels of intensity, of training, of volume, of turning up, repetition, you know, swallow, like that was, I liked that pain. Like, right. I'm all about that pain. I can do it. I can swallow it. I can hold it. And that was the thing. I would just hold myself to the fire, hold myself to that pain more than anybody else. And I just knew that place, like, not quite too far, but I could hold right there. And it just became I guess it was my drug of choice.
Right.
It was my drug. So I was able to, and this is what I've learned to do is...
It is very much so like that, because, you know, people talk about a runner's high, and it's a very real thing, you know, someone that runs frequently. It's once you find that rhythm and that momentum and, your steps become succinct and your thoughts just start kind of flowing. Like an hour goes by and you don't even realize. But it's just getting to that point. It is very much so a drug. It becomes addictive.
Very much. And I mean, it's very, 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 it's immensely uncomfortable, and I would push myself more than anybody. I would imagine. I had immense imagination, but I also had, and I think this was from my early years as well, is I was able to dissociate, right? Totally dissociate. It's like I go into this bubble and I just hold the pain or swallow the pain and I dissociate from it so I could stay in it. But also, see, the benefit of that afterwards is that I was so pooped, so wrecked, so exhausted that my focus had to be recovery or sleep. And I needed that because then I could feel comfortable inside my own skin. Otherwise, I've got this nauseating discomfort just humming and burning away inside of me. Whereas when I was directing it to high-level physical activity and then exhausted afterwards, like I was settled. It was like, it was like an exhale. It was that feeling. But I had to do the opposite of it to get it.
Once you exert yourself at that extreme, it's like there's not a worry in the world. You're just glad that essentially the pain's over, and you get to rest and you get to recover and, hopefully put good stuff in your body and, grow and rejuvenate. Did you ever hit thresholds of injury or because, it's a lot of strain on, I imagine, your knees and on your ankles pushing? No?
No, with triathlon, not really. And it was really smart. Like I didn't overtrain too much in triathlon until I took on a coach, Cole Stewart on the Gold Coast. I wanted to make the Olympics. So I was like, right, well, fuck, I got to go move to the Gold Coast, live with this crew and train. But what he did was he overtrained all of us. Like his attitude was slash and burn, and only the strong survived. So I just kept doing whatever was asked because I just wanted people to like me or love me. And I figured if I do whatever he says, firstly, I'll make the Olympics. And second, these people will like me and love me. And, it didn't work out that way, but I didn't quite make the Olympics. But prior to that, I was extremely good at balancing my recovery and my training load. I wasn't too far down the overtraining path at that stage. So I never really came up with injuries. And, triathlon's quite good because you do have those three sports, so you can mix it up a bit. And I had an eccentric older swimming coach who taught me things about swimming that I was able to extrapolate into every other aspect of my training. And, it'll be like the feel of the water, just that little finger and the feel of the water and the, that, technique would deliver so much more than that grunt. So I think he saved my life without a doubt, that man. But I did drink my way out of triathlon as well. It came back.
You came face to face with that internal battle because once the competition's gone and you're in an off season, suddenly the boredom starts to kick in a little bit and you're looking for trouble again. That internal relationship again.
And look, I think it was still my default was drink, self-destruct.
So when did you hit that point that you said, okay, it's time to turn this around? Like
the drinking thing?
Yeah.
Do you mean? Yeah. Look, I'd left my cycling partner behind in Adelaide. We were going to we had qualified for the Paralympics, but I found a alcoholic winemaker. So I moved to Margaret River with him and started my drinking career like nothing else.
Yeah,
and I would pretend
heaven,
that I was a triathlete. I would have a case of wine in my little MX-5 under all my sports gear, but I would be drinking like while I was driving to work, or I would just pretend I was just pretending. But you can only pretend for so long, and I hit a very low with him. He was actually extremely narcissistic, and he was also alcoholic, but I was more alcoholic. So I I just had too much access. I was isolated. I'd left everything behind. I was with someone who was quite abusive, and so I drank myself into oblivion. And at the place that that everything that I'd left behind, everything that I'd been trying to save myself from, came back. It was horrendous. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I was in a pit of despair. I was hiding how much I drank even from him, and he was a big drinker.
How long were you in that relationship?
It was a couple of years. It was only 2 years. I got myself to Margaret River, got these 2 jobs, and drank myself into rehab.
Yeah.
AA.
And so did a friend reach out and say like, hey, we need to check you in, or was that a decision you made by yourself?
Well, actually, my mum had been trying to quietly give me stuff about alcoholism in the past, and you don't want to hear that shit from anybody.
Yeah, of course.
So I never paid it any attention. But without doubt, that information was filed away in my mind because, I just went out onto the back lawn and I just lay there. I think I was on my knees and I just prayed to a God I didn't believe in to help me. To please help me. And I rang my mum and she rang someone and they rang someone. And next thing I know, a lady from Margaret River was taking me to my first AA meeting.
Yeah.
And, I drank again and then I got into rehab and did 5 weeks in a rehab in Rockingham, which is a pretty crusty part of the world. And I went to AA meetings with very crusty old men. And I stayed sober and I got sober and I stayed sober and I wanted it so, like I was willing to do whatever it took to get sober and stay sober.
And I think people don't appreciate the challenge that comes with kicking an alcohol addiction, because there's very few addictions in the world that will kill you if you jump off them too quickly, and alcohol is one of them. So your body will literally shut down and kill itself if you cut that drinking way too quickly. There's a high risk of dying. I think the other one might be opioids, like really strong painkillers. But people don't appreciate like the physical toll that would have taken on you. Like I imagine, when it comes to like if there's a spectrum of pain, like kicking those first couple months must have been high up there for you.
Oh, they talk about white knuckling it. I was, and the thing to stay in AA and to keep turning up is like you have got to have hit a rock bottom where you are willing to go to any lengths to stay sober. And I sat there and I listened, and every time they asked me, I got up and I blubbed and I bumbled my way through, and they fucking loved me. And they had all suffered like I had, and people at all different levels, 30 years sober, 3 days sober, 3 months sober. But the gift of AA is that they keep turning up, they keep telling their stories, and you can relate and you're not alone. And they made me do dishes. They made me go for coffee afterwards. Like I am so introverted. I didn't want to go for coffee, but I went. They said, I think I knew everything I knew about alcoholics and Alcoholics Anonymous from Sandra Bullock's 28 Days. So like, all right. So get sober. Go to meetings. Like get a plant. Keep that plant alive. Then you can have a pet. Get a pet. I got a dog. Right. Keep that thing alive. Right. Keep that thing alive. He kept me alive. Keep going to meetings. It was like that in my mind. It's like, I keep going to meetings, and I would stay up all night because it was the only safe time in the world, because it felt like everybody's energy had chilled. I would sleep late. I'd go straight to a meeting. That was it. Like I was sleeping 14 hours a day easily.
And so that kind of obsessive attitude that you had towards sports, where you would just push yourself like right up against the fire and the pain threshold, and you'd work and work and work, you kind of reapplied that to your sobriety.
Yeah. And do you know what it was? More than anything in those rooms, I heard truth and I felt a heart connection from shared suffering and absolute truth. It didn't matter how ugly it was. People shared it, and I had never known that in my life ever. And that was such a relief. I wanted that. And then very early on, when I got back to AA, I heard a woman share, and she was beautiful, like to look at and to hear this peace in her voice. She was like 20 years sober, and I just desperately wanted what she had. It took me a year, and I ended up asking her to be my sponsor, and she took me under her wing, and I owe my life to her and the program of Alcoholics Anonymous to being here today. And I worked every step, and nobody wants to do what's required to get and stay sober. And, you know, you do a fearless moral inventory. You know, I uncovered every aspect of my life where I had been dishonest, deceitful. You know, I made amends. You know, I went all the way, and I loved it, and it was hard as hell. So, you know, I left no stone unturned, and that's what keeps you sober. Also not drinking, not picking up the first drink.
Yeah.
Nobody didn't know that before I got there.
The most obvious step, but probably the hardest one. I know because I've got a family member that had gone through a similar process than you did, like through AA and NA. I know that there's a strong underlying tone of religion that kind of comes with it as well. You know, there's the giving yourself to a higher power, and you know, I imagine there's a lot of Bible texts like shared throughout. How did you find that experience? You know, kind of exploring your spirituality.
It's such a thing because honestly, I mean, it is what it is. It's my experiences. Like, I was just like, I'm not a God botherer. Like, I was never a God botherer, right? I was like, oh, people who believe in God are all Goddy are like God botherers. But I didn't grow up religiously.
Yeah.
I didn't have had neither high highs or low experiences with any religion or God or spirituality. So, but I was always looking. I was always searching, you know, for something spiritual, something. So yeah, I was a bit resistant to the whole God thing. And then they're like, just, you know, open your ears. Close your mouth, open your ears, right? Like, take what you want, leave the rest. I'm like, all right, I'll just take what I want, leave the rest. And if you don't believe in God or a higher power, then use the group as your higher power. You know, use us as your higher power, but use something. And in the end, I just fell in love with a God of my own understanding, nobody else's. Yeah. I made peace with the thing. And now for me, like, I don't know what it is, the universe, God, nature. I believe, I truly do. And I pray and I love it. And, like, we each have to find our own higher power.
And how do you encapsulate that idea of God? Because it's a really interesting conversation, and I think you have a very unique take on it. So I'm curious to hear it. Like, how do you encapsulate that idea of a creator or an all-knowing being or something that's omnipresent between all of us? You know, like, how do you describe it?
You know what? It's such a strange thing, isn't it? Like, it is a higher power. It is. I just say God. I like God. I like the word God. I don't carry all of the, I know, whatever that agitation that people have around it. Like, my God's better than yours or whatever. It's
that
you only have to really. Hey?
That tribalism, that's really what it is.
Yeah,
you know, it's
my
team
not
versus
yours. It's like, no. I'm pretty sure it's all the same thing. Do you know what? You only have to, like, I pray every day. I pray so much. I pray to God every day. I pray to Archangel Michael. I pray to nature. I pray to Gaia. I pray to Father Sky, Mother Earth, you know, like, and to me, it's all kind of the same. But what's happened, the more that I've had this heart connection with whatever it is that I feel is God, synchronicities. Like, when you start to feel the synchronicities and the love, like truly a heart connection to something, and then the synchronicities to support you, it's undeniable. And I don't think about it too much. Like, it could have rejected me I could have left AA over the God thing, you know, the God word. And also the big book of AA is written in the masculine. So it's all him, his, you know, and I just was like, I don't care. Yeah. I don't care what other people think about it. I don't care. I want the essence of it. I want the what is at the heart of the thing. So I don't think it matters what you call it or how you conceive it, but it's that heart. It's that relief, that knowing that there is something, and there truly is, there is something profoundly guiding in the universe.
Yeah,
and sometimes that was just calling it the universe.
Yeah, and the kind of way I look at it is there's almost a sense of unity in that we are kind of components of the universe just experiencing itself. We're like these tiny little microcosms, and we're all interacting with each other. But whatever that thing is, that God, that whether you want to call it Allah or when you want to refer to Buddhism or Hinduism, it's like whatever that essence is, the soul, it's shared between you and I, and there's that common thread between us, and we're both just having human experiences. And so it helps build empathy between people. So it's like, I can't,
yes, I love that.
I hear your story, and it's like, I can't criticize you or judge you, because it's almost like you've got the same thing that I do. So if I was in the exact same experiences and in the exact same circumstances, I might have probably come out the exact same way that you did, and so you had there's just that shared commonality, and we're just all experiencing different angles and perspectives of life, but there is that unity aspect that I think every kind of religious scripture tries to encapsulate.
Yeah. And that's right. It's not ownership or better or worse or judging. There's no judgment. I'm sorry, but what I was going to say is the funny thing is, when you hit a rock bottom, when you hit a pit of despair, when your desperation and your fear and your horror, your self, whatever that negative weight is, what has happened to me every time is I pray. I pray to a God I didn't even know existed. Like, it's in every one of us. When you go to that depth, then you will know that there is something, and we intuitively reach for it and pray to it, invoke it into our mind, body, spirit, soul, every space in every cell. And I think it becomes, and then I really started to feel that, it is the God lives within me, but I must nurture that God within so I can have a communion with that God all around.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's a fragment of the God that lives within you, and it it's such a hard topic to really give definitive words to, because it is so voodoo, let's call it, and it's every religious scripture across the world has tried to kind of narrow it down and say, if you live by these rules, then you will experience this feeling of highness and this connection to self. And I think when you start paying attention to all the scriptures, you start to see these common threads amongst all of them. So Hinduism talks about it, Buddhism talks about it, Christianity talks about it, like that idea of don't do unto others what you'd have done upon yourself. It's like there's something in the fabric of the universe that really speaks to the human soul in that.
I love that. It's so true. And, God is love, God is forgiveness, God is omnipresent. And when I was in my lovely van for 5 months, homeless, I wrote in chalk on this black felt that I blacked all the windows out because I didn't want anyone to see me. I was so paranoid. But I wrote in this purple chalk where I sat. It was like my little meditation. Actually, I've got a I've got a cross actually in the van still, and I wrote, God loves me. No, God loves you. God loves you. And I would sit and I would cry. I would just sit there at night hiding, and that was at my feet. And I would just cry, and I would just read it over and over and over and over and over. I had a picture of my grandma, and I had God loves you, and then the cross. And I believe it, and I believe that I always used to say, I get like living in my van, leaving domestic violence, being homeless, like they're not cool things, but it's this gift in the fucking ugliest wrapping I've ever known, and I don't want that gift. But it's not the wrapping, it's what's inside and what it's done for me and what it brought through in me and what it had to, the traumas sloth away. Like, that's God's handiwork.
And it's the flow and effect now, because now that you've discovered that kind of reconnection with yourself and I mean, I'm sure you still battle with similar doubts as what you did before, but you've now got the tools to kind of handle those thoughts when they do come.
Exactly, I do.
And now what you're able to do is have that flow and effect to other people. So now other people are going to hear your story and, you know, everything that you've gone through, and they're going to start going through similar journeys. You know, it doesn't just stop with you.
We are not alone. We are not the only ones. And look, I do have a lot of disciplines now, and my whole life is so the girl who didn't want disciplines, like, as I just hated the whole discipline idea. And then one day I read this quote, and I think it was like, you know, one of the greats, maybe might have been Nelson Mandela, freedom through discipline.
Yes,
I was like,
that's a great quote.
That floored me.
Yeah.
Really? And it is true. I did a 5-week tour across Australia doing a seminar tour, Freedom Through Discipline. And, you know, it's defined me, you know, so my disciplines, I'm passionate and fluid in my disciplines, but my disciplines are my medicine.
Yeah.
Now. And, you know, there's a very, very clear structure to every single day, how I begin my day, the meditations, the invocations, the breathing, the salutes to the sun, the journaling, like all of that has to be in order, because I set my energy. Whoops.
We lost you there for a second. Oh, you're back.
Sorry.
No, that's okay.
My battery was just telling me it was 20%, so we've still got a bit. My disciplines now, you know, and my prayers and, you know, I plunge every day, and every day when I plunge, I have this invocation, which is a prayer and an invocation. Oh, I go into the river. It's freezing. And I sit in there for a good 10 minutes after training.
Yeah.
And I say my prayers and I give thanks. And, you know, my prayers take me it's probably about 5-6 minute long thing. I don't leave anybody out, you know, Archangel Michael, Sophia Christ, Gaia, Amma, you know, you name it. So everybody gets, you know, a mention, but it's, I believe that it's calibrating and vibrating a very high frequency in every cell of my body. And I want that for myself.
Yeah.
And I draw that in from nature and I return it as well. So I feel like I'm in a really beautiful balance.
Are you familiar with the teachings of Abraham Hicks by any chance?
Yes,
I thought so.
I love.
Your vocabulary is very parallel to hers.
Yeah. I love all of that stuff. And you know, when I got sober, a year sober, I took a guru. I took Amma, and I went to the ashram, and I would chant the thousand names of the Divine Mother in Malayalam every night before bed, and that took a very long time. And,
yeah, I bet.
An hour, but I wanted to learn it off by heart.
Right.
You know, so I deep dive that, satsangs and rudrakshas, and, you know, I went to the ashram a number of times, and, you know, I was always searching and always willing and always open. And, you know, my seed for my mantra from Amma was forgiveness. You know, that was the thing that has defined me, I think, is forgiveness. And, you know, the last place that I've forgiven is myself. But, you know, it doesn't matter who or what, there's always forgiveness in my heart, and empathy, immense empathy, even for, you know, my abusers. And, you know, I feel for them. I feel for the pain they must be going through to treat another human in the way that they have.
Exactly.
You know,
it's a projection of their own relationship with themselves.
Their suffering. That's
and I think for a lot of people listening to this might be a little bit overwhelming, you know, because yourself and I are kind of deeply, you know, embedded into this world. But for someone kind of coming in and not really understanding all this terminology, it all kind of comes back down to that principle you started with, in that there's freedom in discipline, rather. You know, and it seems counterintuitive, because it's like freedom and discipline should be binary opposites. But the reality is that, you know, in its simplest form, if you are disciplined about the thoughts you think, and if you're disciplined about the emotions that you engage with, and the things, if you're disciplined about your focus and what you choose to put your energy towards, you will find freedom in that. Because if you focus on happiness, and if you focus on peace, and you focus on understanding, your relationship with yourself, no one can interfere with that. No amount of externality will ever be able to change that. And that's where you try and find true freedom, where it doesn't really matter what's going on the outside. It's your relationship within. But that's a whole process in itself, and it's a whole journey, and it's not something you're going to be able to pick up overnight. And, you know, I still struggle with it frequently, you know, like where something happens and I'm just, you know, watching the news, for example, right? It's the worst exercise anyone could ever do. Just watch the news and watch your emotional roller coaster kind of just go up and down because they're feeding into that. But if you can, you know, just dedicate 5-10 minutes to really check in with yourself and your own emotional well-being, you'll find so much upside on that.
Yeah, we're funny, aren't we, humans? Like, I pray because the alternative is still, I find my mind will just wander off to lower vibration thoughts, lower, heavier, denser, you know, negative thinking. And I need to save myself from that. And I do that by praying. I do that by loving, you know, communing, like observing the beauty of nature, the movement of a butterfly or an ant, or, do you know, like I just get so delighted by these things. And that's what saves me from the negative downward spiral. And we are all programmed that way. We go to that fear, that doubt, that negativity, that heaviness, that, you know, and we are what we focus on all the time. So every time I catch myself, I've got a bazillion invocations now and prayers, and I just start hammering them.
And I think, as
you know, and it is a little bit that fake it till you make it too, but
course.
It's a vibrational fake it.
The more you become accustomed to higher, better feeling thoughts, right? So, you know, if you're just more engaged with thoughts that feel good, when you find yourself descending into doubt, or you find yourself descending into anger or frustration, you're a lot more sensitive to it because it's so out of place as to where you normally kind of keep yourself.
Yeah, you start to have a new true north. Instead of being, you know, in the pit of despair, my true north is actually up here. And I don't, like, I stopped rushing a long time ago, and even just doing that is a good practice, because you begin to catch yourself, become aware, and then make a different decision when you're lost to yourself, when you're triggered, and away you go into unconscious. So yeah, I feel the negativity. I feel the weight of the doubts and the fears and the traumatic thinking in my skin, in my tissues, in my body. And I take myself, it's like my own, it is the trigger to get myself back to the true north, not my false north.
Yeah.
But it takes practice.
Of course, it's a muscle. It doesn't
stop. Practice, you know.
You don't finish it.
So
I want to switch gears.
So often our timelines are too short with prayer, invocation, positivity, right action. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to switch gears with you a little bit, just to make sure we cover all bases. CrossFit. So you obviously become sober. You're living this new life, healthy relationship with yourself. Why CrossFit?
It found me. I didn't find it. You know, I was PTing. My dear friend came in and said, blah, 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 CrossFit. I'm like, yeah, whatever. You know, she's also an alcoholic, but sober. They're like, yeah, whatevs. But then I looked it up and I found this guy, and he was like, dreadlocks, no mirrors. I was trying to make the Olympics in high kneeling canoeing. So I was like, fuck, I'll go get some PTs from him. So I turned up. I'm like, look, I do this lunging position, kneeling canoeing. I don't want to be jumping. I don't want to be doing this Olympic lifting. Just get my upper body strong because I want to go to the Olympics. And anyway, long story short, I didn't make the Olympics. I made Worlds, didn't make the Olympics. And then the CrossFit Open started, and I was loving it. So I was like, fuck, it only costs $20. I'm going to be training anyway. I'll just give it a go.
And what kind of stuff?
Give it a go. I did.
What kind of stuff are you doing at CrossFit? Like, are you on the medicine balls doing squats? Like, what's the setup there? Because I've seen some crazy stuff.
Every kind of Olympic lifting, every kind of gymnastics movement, every kind of strongman movement, every kind of endurance event that you've ever known of, all mashed together. You never know what the workout's going to be. You have to be strong. You have to have endurance. You have to have agility. You have to have high-skilled gymnastics. So I had none of that, but I knew how to swallow pain, and I was very, very fit. I was really bad at gymnastics, extremely bad at Olympic lifting. But I managed to qualify for regionals, which is effectively like Asia Pacific nationals. And then I qualified for the CrossFit Games. Didn't even know what it was. 41 when I got there, individual female against all of the women in the world.
And because CrossFit by nature is so random, and like you said before, you don't know what you're getting into each training session. So how does the CrossFit Games work? Like, are they saying, hey, we're going to be, planking for 20 minutes or
3 days, multiple? You wouldn't even know how many workouts you're going to do in the period of the 3 days. You've got to turn up. It was all unknown, unknowable. The workouts are announced as they see fit. Could be 5 minutes before, could be hours before, could be a day before, could be a week before you get there. You just don't know. And I love that about it, because I'm like, yeah, my whole life's been unknown and unknowable. So bring it. What do you got?
Yeah.
What do you fucking got? And I was a recovery machine. I'm like, these guys aren't nearly as prepared as I am. Like, I was out there with my green goddess, and we were being briefed in this stinking sun, and none of them had water. And I'm like, they're all flagging, and I'm like, whoa, bring it.
Yeah.
I was always known as a recovery machine, and I am. I still am.
And so for your regional games, what did they have you do?
Oh, I can't even remember. There was a swimming running event to start with. So
right up your alley.
The first out of the water. 41-year-old woman from Australia comes out of the water first before any other known athlete. They're like, who the fuck is that?
Yeah.
Who is that? And I finished that workout fourth. So on the first day, I think I finished the day fourth. And they're like, woo, who is that? Anyway, I finished 19th overall. There were sled pushes, there's rope climbs, there's I can't even remember. So many. 1RM snatch. They did a 1RM weighted strict pull up.
And who's designing all of these? Like, is there a team of is it like a CrossFit head?
Mostly it was Dave Castro. Yeah, right. He was like a ex-Navy SEAL, massive ego. And real hard ass, and very good programmer of events.
Right.
Yeah, whatever he could dream up. Yeah.
Right. That makes sense. And so from that stage onwards, you find yourself what was the next step after regional? Because obviously you've had quite a successful career.
Oh, well, yeah. So I got to the games, came 19th overall. I flew back to Australia. Actually, was my birthday. Every time it was my birthday on the plane. So it was like I never got a birthday. And I took my suitcase and I went straight to the gym. Right. I'm like, right, I'm fucking bring it. I'm going back. I started training and I didn't stop. And it was like 10 years later, I did not ever take the foot off the pedal. And I had a lot of things go on in that time. And that's when I got cut open. There was a lot of things went on, but I just kept turning up, fractured hip, fractured foot, you name the injuries. And I just kept turning up, and I got better and better and better and better.
And were your results in competitions getting better as well?
Yeah, I did not. I mean, I did 6 games. I won 3 golds, 1 bronze. I think one year I came second to last, but 2 weeks prior I'd finished a 1,000-kilometre run for suicide and mental illness across Australia to Mackay.
Who on earth is running a CrossFit 31
Ks a day. Yeah.
Who's doing a CrossFit Games after running 1,000 kilometers the week before? That is wild.
It wasn't good prep.
Yeah, I bet.
I was really bad. And I was so sick. I just got so sick. I started with, I think, virtually pneumonia on the run. I ran 31 Ks a day. So it was about 5 hours a day. I was so sick. I blew hemorrhoids. I was coughing that much. I ended up blowing hemorrhoids, basically,
Jesus Christ,
out of my butthole. So I was running with chronic, I was literally like someone was knifing me the whole time. So it was like my friends like, Amanda, this is not a hemorrhoids awareness run. This is a suicide awareness run. And I was like, I'm so sorry, but I'm dying. Yeah. I actually had one lady, she found me, I don't know, she must have been following my journey. I don't know what strange little town I was in. I was just getting some food after the day's run. And she's like, oh my God, Amanda. And she pulled this thing out of her handbag and she had this Dr. Wheatgrass. And she's like, I've been wanting to give this to you. It will help your hemorrhoids. Oh, thank you. Bless.
Isn't that sweet? Wow.
Yeah, so I could be the pin-up girl for hemorrhoid cream. Yes. Tuxedo.
I bet you didn't see that as a career path, but here we are.
No, there's many things I haven't seen coming.
What was it like when you won your first CrossFit Games? You know, to be first in the world, to be internationally recognized.
It was ecstatic.
Yeah.
It was incredible. Like, I worked for that. I disciplined. I did everything. I came alive. Like, I came alive. I found my place. I found my tribe. I found my work. I can't even describe it. It's just like, I was just on.
And especially for someone like you know, growing up, you had a lot of problems with validation and self-worth, and, you know, you're very aware of how people perceived you. So to be number one, to be top, to have that gold medal, you know, and no one can take that away from you. Like, that's yours forever.
It was amazing. And I just had, like, the CrossFit community was so generous to me, and I had women and men and people loving me and reaching out and telling me how inspired they were. And I couldn't see it. I just appreciated it, and I wanted to give it back to all of them, just to thank them. So it just became this immense, like, we had our own little ecosystem of support and inspiration. And I got to go back and just train, you know, my 6-hour days in my own little introverted bubble, you know, to rage against the machine, playing in the gym, and being a real fucking badass. And, you know, I never really swore much before CrossFit, but my mouth became pretty filthy. But you also do, like, if you're going to pick up something that is death-defyingly heavy, and you're terrified, and, you know, you just fucking tell that bar what's going to happen. And, it's like, dude, you know.
Yeah, I mean, this is a form of legalized torture, you know, some of the exercises you guys are doing. Like, it's insane. It is insane. It is, and it was, and and it is more so now, than ever. Beautiful.
Crazy.
All right, Amanda, I'm going to wrap things up here. Why don't you let people know where to find you? Social media plugs, your podcast. I want to hear it all. Let the people know.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm on Instagram as Amanda Unicorn Allen. Unicorn.
Can I ask why the unicorn?
And, because they believe in impossible things, and they are the bringers of light, and they make magic happen.
I love
you
it.
know, and I just have always loved, and I've got you know, freedom on here, and you know, so much. And I also had this field of grace written on here, so they're just reminders to me, you know. They remind me of my true north and what I'm built of, and, you know, I really do feel like a unicorn. So
there you are. I love it.
In a strange world. I'm Amanda Unicorn Allen on Instagram. That's a really good place to find me. But also AmandaAllen.com.au is my website, where all my most incredible, and I know we haven't talked about it, and please, it's not a problem, all my incredible alkalizing, detoxing, nourishing and fasting protocols, my 4 pillars of health, which I literally have changed my life. My body, if you'd seen it when I was CrossFitting and the way it is now, and I've become Benjamin Button without a question.
Yeah.
And other women, other humans are reclaiming their health. You know, you name the marker, thyroid, cholesterol, weight, whatever it is, it's changing people's lives, and it's what's held me. It's my proven protocol, so that's available. I host retreats, and and I have my Whispers with Women podcast, which, you know, that's on all the podcast stations, and I get to have the kind of conversations that I want to have with the strangest and most wonderful, wise women of the world. And I tell you, it goes all places. And,
I've been listening
really
to a couple throughout the week, and they've been excellent. Absolutely excellent. I love them.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to hit you up for some supplements over there on your website, because I want whatever you're taking. I need to have it.
Yeah, no, you should. I want what she's having, right?
That's it.
Let's get some of that in us.
100%.
Yeah, and you know, Monica, who connected us, she's had the most incredible results from it, and she's so passionate. And really, everyone is. I just had a 5-star review come through this morning, and somebody who's never done a review before was just singing the praises of my holy coffee. And, you know, it's a massive seller. So, my little business is growing, and all I want to do is help heal the heart and health of humanity by the power of food as medicine. And, you know, I'm living proof of my protocols, you know.
Yeah. And it's a great
and I also,
philosophy to
I bring,
have.
I bring ritual, I bring intention, I bring honor, self-honor and respect into the protocol. It's not just food. I don't do calories. I don't do macros. They can all go get fucked. I do health. I do well-being. I do vibration. I do radiance.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Oh, we lost you again.
Sorry.
Right. Amanda, I hate to cut this short, but I've got someone coming in the next 10 minutes. It's been an absolute honor to have you here. Thank you.
It's been so lovely. You're such a beautiful energy. Thank you for holding this space for me. I felt so comfortable, not uncomfortable in any sense whatsoever. I appreciate it.
I'm glad to
really
hear that.
do.
And we'll be in contact. I'm looking forward to hearing your story, evolve over time and all the amazing things you've got going on. And I'm going to be hitting you up for some supplements, I promise you.
Oh, good. I would love to share some with you. So we will connect after.
All right. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. I'll just say goodbye to the puppies.
Yes. Your
see
wolves.
you guys. Yeah, they're wrecked. My wolfies.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you so
Amanda.
much.
Bye.
All the love to you. Thank you,
Beautiful.
Luca. Bye-bye.
That's it, guys. Bang.